Hello, Warhawks. This is Mr. Tipton, and we are ready to do Chapter 5-2, which deals with triangles and their angles. Some important things today, or some goals we're going to have, is the triangle angle sums. What do all the angles of a triangle add up to? And exterior angles of a triangle. We're going to look at those. We haven't really done that before. So just down here is kind of an overview of basically what this is all based on is that all triangles, no matter what, are going to add up to equal 180 degrees. So the interior angles, the ones inside, are all going to add up to 180. Doesn't matter the triangle, it just is always true. Just like a square is always 360, a pentagon is always 540, a triangle is always 180. So if you're given two angles that are inside the triangle, you can always find the third. Probably the best way to do this, I mean, some of you just do it in your head or something like that, but you're going to add these two up. 110 plus 50 is 160. And then you just subtract that number from 180, and you're going to have what's left over, which is going to be 20. So x in this case is going to equal 20 degrees. Now, you can also write this as an equation, which is helpful if they give you variables that have like coefficients with them. Maybe instead of this was x, maybe it was 6x. You could do something like 50 plus 110 plus x equals 180. And then you have your equation set up, which is basically what we did over here, but then you combine your like terms, subtract it from both sides, and then you can isolate x. So you will have to do that in some equations, and it's helpful, or some problems, and it's helpful to set up an equation. Let's look at another example here. Now we get to the exterior angles. So right here we can see that the exterior angle, there's an angle that's outside of the triangle. So these are called interior angles. This is an exterior angle. So we're going to have to remember a couple things from earlier. But I'm just going to say that the exterior angle equals 140. I'll put that down right there. So we need to solve for x and y. Now this seems like it's not going to be possible to do. However, we can think back to at the beginning of the year when we did straight lines. Two angles that make a straight line are called supplementary angles, or even a linear pair, and they always add up to equal 180. So not only do triangles add up to 180, but straight lines are always 180 degrees. So I look at 140 here and x, they are supplementary. They make that straight line. So x and 140 have to add up to 180, which means I know x is 40 degrees. Now that I have that, I can actually find y, because now we have a triangle here, and those three angles again must also add up to equal 180. So I add 50 plus 40, that's 90. Subtract 90 from 180, and we get that y is going to equal 90 degrees as well. Now I want to stop here for a second and look at this other vocabulary word here. We have these things called remote interior angles. Now here we see three interior angles, but the remote interior angles are going to be the angles that are actually not touching the exterior angle. So those two angles right there are called our remote interior angles. They're not touching this 140. See how 40 and 140 touch each other? But these are away or remote. Just like you use a remote control, you sit away from the TV to change the channel. Well, that's what this is. Remote means away. So these two angles are away from 140. Now I want you to look at what these two angles are. Our two remote interior angles are 50 and 90. Something here that you may see a kind of a similarity or something in common here is that 50 and 90 and 140. 50 plus 90 equals 140. So angles that are remote interior angles are always equal to the exterior angle. So if I didn't know what this was, I could solve for y right away, because 50 plus y is going to equal 140. 50 plus 90 does equal 140. So you can solve for it that way as well. Let's look at another example here. So now this one, they've given me these two angles. So right now, using what we talked about with the remote interior angles, these two angles are remote interior angles with y. So actually, 60 plus 90 will equal what y is, and you'll see that in just a second. But here we can start with the triangle too. We look at this triangle. This is 60, that's 90. We know that x has to add to those two to equal 180. So x must be 30 degrees. 60 plus 90 is 150, plus 30 is 180. And notice that these two make a straight line. So they're supplementary, which means they also have to add to 180. So y is going to equal 150 degrees. Now again, remote interior angles, 60 plus 90 does equal 150. So there's kind of a realization you can have there. Let's look at this question here. Now we have two exterior angles, and we need to find x. So they've not given us any of the angles of the triangle. However, because they make a linear pair, if this is 160, I know this angle has to add up to 160 to equal 180. So it's got to be 20 degrees. Now that I have 20, there's two different ways I could solve for this one. Can't quite solve for x yet. Well, I guess I could. 20 plus x is going to equal 105. We'll get there in a second. 105 in this angle are also supplementary, which means this angle has to equal 75. 75 plus 105 makes 180. Now we have this triangle. 20 plus 75 is 95. Subtract 95 from 180. And we get our answer, which is going to be 85 for x. And that's really all they wanted us to solve to get the question right, but we did have to find a couple other things. Now look, 160, and these two angles, these are remote to 160. So look, 85 plus 75 does equal 160. Also, these two angles, 85 and 20, are remote to 105. 85 plus 20 does equal 105. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you in class.